What's up, Calvary family? Nick here. I feel like my eyes are dark. Maybe. I don't know. Nick here. It is Monday morning. I'm getting ready to head out to work. Got my coffee, got my Bible, and got a few minutes to spend here with you guys. And so I wanted to talk this morning. You know, it's so hard during this time to not address everything kind of that's going on, right? Like the elephant in the room, so to speak, is the fact that everything is different right now. And so I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I don't want to continuously kind of harp on that and dwell on it, because you know what? It is what it is, and we serve a God that's big, bigger than we can ever imagine, a God that is completely in control, that is not surprised, that is not caught off guard. And though things look different for us right now, things are not bad. I mean, maybe some of you guys are feeling some of the negativity. Maybe some of you guys have a parent that's lost a job. Maybe some of you have lost a job. Parents, maybe some of you have lost a job. And I don't want to downplay that, but I want to keep a healthy perspective, if that makes sense. And so, you know, in the midst of all this, I think sometimes it's easy for us to look at our own unique situation and judge the entirety of the situation from it. And so I want to encourage you this morning not to do that. I want to encourage you to look at the whole picture and what God is doing in and through and around you and through His church. And I think right now we're seeing the church do some incredible things. I think we're seeing people respond to the call of God's Word on their life in ways that we've never seen before, or they never thought possible for themselves. And so with all that, like, I don't want to harp on the negative. I know that may sound weird, but I want to spend time thinking about the good that has come from this. And so I've been going through the Bible in a year, and I'm way behind because that's just me. It's hard for me to do routine, and so judge me if you want. But I'm going through the Bible in a year, and so right now I'm in a couple of books at a time. And one of the books I'm in right now is the book of Genesis, at the very end of it. And so we're looking at the life of Joseph. And I know probably a lot of you guys know who Joseph is. If you don't know who Joseph is, he is, you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Okay, this was God started with Abraham, so to speak, after Noah and the flood and all that stuff. And God decided He was going to establish, I say He decided, He moved forward with His plan to establish His people. And it started with Abraham, and He made this promise to Abraham that he would be the father of many nations. Abraham had a son named Isaac. Isaac had a son named Jacob, and then Jacob had 12 sons. One of those sons was Joseph. Jacob loved Joseph, and I don't know if I can say more than the others, but that's kind of what the Bible says. I couldn't say that I love one of my kids more than the others, but you know, it is what it is, right? Joseph was kind of the baby of the group, and so Jacob had given him this coat of many colors. If you haven't heard of Joseph or didn't know who he was, maybe that rings a bell. And so his brothers were jealous of him, and because they were jealous of him, ultimately they decided that they were going to do him harm. And so they wanted to kill him. And then one of his brothers spoke up and said, "Hey, I don't want to kill our brother. Like, I think that we don't want his blood on our hands, and let's just throw him in a pit and wait and see what happens." And then they were going to do that, or they did do that, and then decided that these slave traders came through, and they said, "Well, hey, let's sell him. Let's sell him off, and then we'll take his coat. We'll kill a goat. We'll put blood on it. We'll tell Dad that he got attacked and eaten by an animal." And so that's what they did. They sold their brother to the Midianites. They took him to Egypt. He was purchased by a guy named Potiphar, who was the captain of the Egyptian guard. He was basically Pharaoh's right-hand man. And so Joseph became a servant in Potiphar's house. And before long, Joseph kind of became the commander of Potiphar's house. In Genesis, it says that the only thing that Potiphar had not given Joseph was his wife. And you know what happened? His wife wanted Joseph. And so Joseph, because he was an honorable man, he was a godly man, he refused. And so she accused him, and Potiphar had Joseph thrown in jail. Joseph stays in jail for what was probably several years. He meets a couple of guys in jail. He interprets some dreams for them. they both come true. One of them, they died 3 days after the dream. The other one was restored 3 days after the dream as the cupbearer of Pharaoh. And so all this is happening in Egypt while Joseph's brothers are back in their homeland. And so when Joseph interpreted the dream of the cupbearer, he said, "Hey, listen, I only ask you one thing. Remember me when you get out of this place. When you bust out of jail, remember me." And so the cupbearer gets out, and he says that he forgets. And so years pass by, and Pharaoh has a troubling dream. And so when Pharaoh has this troubling dream, Joseph, the cupbearer, remembers, and he says, "Hey, I was supposed to remember this guy, and I forgot him, but he's in your jail right now, and he interpreted a dream for me and the baker, and they both came true. And I'm giving you guys like the Cliff Note version of all this." And so Pharaoh says, "Hey, bring him to me." So he interprets these dreams for Pharaoh, and one of these dreams at one point comes up, and Pharaoh basically dreams there's 7 cows, and they're starving. And there's 7 cows that are fat. And the 7 starving cows eat the 7 fat cows, but they don't get any fatter. They stay skinny and gaunt looking. And so that really troubles Pharaoh. Then he has another one about some corn stalks. Anyway, he asks Joseph what these dreams mean. And Joseph says, "Listen, these dreams mean that there's going to be 7 years of prosperity in Egypt. 7 years of good crops, 7 years of good things happening in Egypt. But then there's going to be 7 years of famine." And he said, "You need to take this time now to store up food over the next 7 years so that when the 7 years of famine come, the people of Egypt will have plenty to eat." And so Pharaoh, he's thankful for Joseph. Joseph becomes the right hand of Pharaoh. He puts him in charge of all of the food and the storage and all this stuff, the most important parts of the functionality of Egypt, like Joseph becomes in charge of. So here's a guy, in a matter of years, it says he was 30 years old when this happened. So in a matter of a few years, he was probably a teenager, a young teenager when he was sold. So, but he has gone from being hated by his brothers, abused by his brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into jail, and now sold into slavery, the head of a really powerful man's house, then thrown into jail, then now he's the kind of the right hand of Pharaoh. He's the second in command in all of Egypt. And you know what happens? During these 7 years of famine, it doesn't just affect Egypt, but it affects the known world at the time. And so Joseph's family from far away, they start to starve. And they're in need of food. And so his brothers tell his dad, "Hey, listen, we heard that there's food for sale in Egypt. Let us go to Egypt." I don't know if you know what all happens. I'm going to speed up here because I don't want to take too much time. But his brothers go to Egypt. They encounter Joseph. They don't recognize him. He sends them back. And he asks them to do these tests and whatnot. And it's they think he's kind of toying with them. And in a way he kind of is, but he isn't. Anyway, so all this happens, and finally there's a big reveal, and Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, and during all this Joseph was just wrenched with heartbreak because he would go in his room and weep. He wouldn't let his brothers see him cry, but he would weep, and can you imagine just the flood of emotions that Joseph had during this time? Here he is now in charge of everything that can sustain his family. The ones that hurt him the most, the ones that wronged him the most. And here's his brothers who did this horrible thing and up to this point have really shown no remorse for it. And they come in, and this is towards the end. And in Genesis chapter 50, starting in verse 15, I want to read this to you guys. It says, "When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, 'It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him.' So they sent a message to Joseph saying, 'Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, because they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father.' Joseph wept when he spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him and said, 'Behold, we are your servants.'" Now there's some remorse happening. Now there's some, and there had been a little bit before this, but now they're falling down before him and saying, "We are your servants." And Joseph said to them, listen to this, "Do not fear, for I am in the place of God." Hey, listen, I said I didn't want to beat a dead horse, but I want you to understand, the last couple of weeks I've looked at these words, "do not fear." Do not fear, fear not. Don't let your heart be troubled. Joseph here is telling his brothers, do not fear, for I am in the place of God. Guys, right now, you have the ability to be in the place of God. A lot of it depends on what you're going to do with your time, with your different life now. And listen, I don't believe this life is going to last forever. A lot of people are calling it the new norm, and it is a new norm for a time, but this isn't forever. I don't believe it's forever. It says, I'm in the place of God. As for you, and I want you to hear this, as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear, I will provide for you and your little ones. Thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Guys, some of you right now are looking at what's going on in the world. You're looking at what's going on in your life. We can be short-sighted sometimes. And you're going, man, why is all this bad happening? And some of us want to get frustrated. I look at social, I don't even know why I look at social media outside of for keeping up with you guys and stuff like that. And I'm not even good at that. But some of us need to just get off social media. I'm one of those people that I can't sit here and read all of everybody's intelligent comments, because most of them are just not intelligent. But so many people are like, man, they're blaming this on the government. They're blaming this on China. They're blaming this on man. They're all this stuff. Listen, whatever they're blaming it on, it doesn't matter, because what someone may have intended for evil, what the enemy may have intended for evil, God has intended for good. God has intended for his people to prosper during this time. He has intended for his people to become what they need to become during this time. This is a time of opportunity for you. This is a time of opportunity for me. See, Joseph understood that what his brothers did presented him an opportunity. It presented him with the ability to become who God wanted him to become. And that, for him, happened to be this powerful guy who was able to basically accept or reject people and offer life and death. And for his brothers, it says that he spoke kindly to them and he forgave them and he offered them life, essentially, and food. And so for us during this time, we have the opportunity to offer love, to offer kindness. Maybe there's somebody in your life that you need to forgive. Maybe there's somebody in your life that needs to hear the gospel. Maybe obviously things are a little bit different right now. You probably don't need to go to your neighbor's house, knock on the door, and try to go in and sit down and share the gospel with them. But I don't know what ways you might have, but know this, that whatever it is that you might be thinking that God had intended for evil, or that man had intended for evil, or maybe you think God is doing bad things. Understand this, God is doing good things. I love what Pastor Willie shared yesterday. If you didn't get a chance to watch the message yesterday, please go watch it. He shared the story about I believe it was the priest of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame. And he said that the man said if God had given him all of his power for one day, there's many things in the world he would change. But if God gave him all the wisdom, he wouldn't change a thing. See, God has all the wisdom. God knows what's happening. God knows what he's doing. And you need to understand, and you need to rest in that. You need to not have fear. You need to understand that God is in control. God is at work. I think he's at work in you. I think he's at work in me. He's at work in my home and my family. And so it's not always easy, but he never promised it would be. In fact, Paul in Philippians chapter 3 said that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering. Sometimes we're meant to suffer, and I think that's something we lose in American Christianity, is we think we don't deserve or we don't need to suffer. But guys, sometimes we need to suffer. Maybe some of you guys are suffering. I'm going to say we're not really suffering. I mean, maybe a little bit mentally for me because I'm such an extrovert and I want to be out with my friends and doing things. But listen, we're not suffering. We're very blessed in our place. And I think most of you guys could probably say the same if you looked at it. So listen, I love you guys. I want you to remember about the things coming up. We have stuff on Instagram Monday through Thursday. We have a live Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Jimmy's doing a live, I think, on Thursday nights. Could be Friday nights. Jimmy, I'm sorry. But we have all sorts of opportunities for you to connect. I will be reaching out to a lot of you guys this week personally. I'm waiting right now on getting all the contact information out of CCB for you guys. So I'll be reaching out to a lot of you guys personally. If you need to reach out to me or you just want to reach out to me, listen, you guys have my email, you have my phone number. Most of you do, 770-841-0998. Feel free to reach out to me. I love you guys. I miss you guys. I can't wait to see you guys again. Until then, listen, keep going strong and just keep trusting and looking for opportunities to be the church in new ways. And there's going to be a lot of great stories, I'm sure, that we can share when we all get back together. See you guys soon. Love you.